Is there anything better than a loving hug from your mother? Yes, there is, and that's called chocolate chip cookies from the mother that loves you. Hey everyone, welcome back to Grains and Grit. My name is Felicia, and today I'm very excited to show you the chocolate chip recipe that I have come to really love, my kids have come to really love, even my husband loves, and I'm thrilled to be able to share this with you today. This is actually another recipe that has been converted. The recipe that I found that I really loved is Natasha Kitchen's soft chocolate chip cookie recipe. And I will certainly link her channel and her recipe down below for the original. But as always, when you're using freshly milled grains, some modification is required. And so I'm going to show you this wonderful chocolate chip recipe converted and modified to be able to use 100% freshly milled wheat. So this is whole grain chocolate chip cookies that is still super soft, absolutely delicious. You probably can't even tell that this is a true whole grain chocolate chip cookie. I mean, it's practically guilt-free. And this is also an excellent way to get whole grains into your picky eaters, like some children, or maybe your husband, or someone who might not be a fan of whole wheat type products. Before we get started, question of the day. What is your favorite cookie? I would love to hear this below. Mine is definitely hands down chocolate chip cookie. I'm a traditionalist in that way. I love a good chocolate chip cookie. But let me know what yours is down in the comments below. I post videos every week unlocking the secrets to biblical healthy whole grains. I teach you techniques, tips, tricks, recipes, the reason why we should be consuming whole grains. So if that sounds like something that you would like, be sure to subscribe below and hit that bell button to be notified of future videos. Also hit that like button if you love guilt-free, sort of, cookies. All right, so now we're gonna be talking about how to convert cookies. How do you get good cookies with freshly milled grains? The biggest problem that I've always had when making cookies is my cookies come up too flat. So, you know, they're really flat and they don't look appealing. They're not that light fluffiness. They're just flat and weird looking. They taste good, but they look weird. And we all like cookies that look nice and pretty. Another thing that I do not like is a lot of cookie recipes are way too sweet for me. So I'm going to show you ways that I back off on that sweetness, but still maintaining a very good texture, a lightness to it. And the last one is people over bake their cookies. So I'm going to be teaching you, no matter what cookie you bake, the secrets of making sure you come out with a very soft, chewy cookie. Unless you really like the hard cookies, in which case you're weird by my opinion, because a cookie should be soft and chewy. Am I right or am I right? All right, so now let's go on to the recipe. It's very simple, the things that you will need. I mean, it's just a basic cookie recipe. Now you can make this in your stand mixer with the paddle attachment. I have the Bosch universal mixer, and I actually have to have the cookie attachments to be able to make a cookie recipe, which I do not have at the moment. So we're gonna be going old school with just a normal hand mixer. So with that, you will need the bowl, the mixer, whatever you're going to do. You're also going to need flour for any baked goods. If you watch my videos for any length of time, you need a soft white wheat flour. Do not use a hard red or hard white flour. Those are typically your bread flours. They're not gonna be a really light texture, which is what you want for baked goods. So a soft white wheat flour. You may be able to use spelt because that has been a lighter flour if you prefer a type of ancient grain. I have not personally used it, but certainly check it out and let me know if you do that, how it turns out. But I have a feeling that a spelt would actually do fairly well. But bottom line, we need soft white wheat flour. This is already milled. We are going to sift some of the flour today, so you need some sort of sifter. You need 1 teaspoon of salt and 1 teaspoon baking soda, which I have both in here just to save bowls. We also need 1 cup of packed brown sugar. You can also use sucanat if you prefer that. We also need 1/2 cup of cane sugar. Again, you can use honey granules, sucanat with honey, kind of the same name, but this is just regular cane sugar, and that's 1/2 cup. And this is where I've already, part of the ways that you can back off on the sugar. I really like that Natasha's recipe already called for a little less sugar. I have seen recipes typically like on the back of the chocolate chip bag where it calls for 1 cup of brown sugar and 1 cup of sugar. We're up to just 1.5 cups right now. I have another way that I back off on that sugar as well that I'll tell you in a minute. But you don't want to back off too much because your cookies will not turn out well. So we've got 1 cup brown, 1/2 cup of sugar, cane sugar. We need 2 eggs, which these are from my chickens, so they need to be about regular, just large eggs, room temperature. We need 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract, and then we need our chocolate chips. Now, this is another way that I back this off a little bit on the sweetness, is I buy, you can find, these are Ghirardelli's, and these are the bittersweet chocolate chip cookies, so they're a little less sugar. I have also used this, and it turned out perfectly with the completely unsweetened chocolate chips. I think Ghirardelli has one. They've kind of been a bit harder to find. I wasn't able to find it this time. So I'm just using the bittersweet chocolate chips, which may mean that I may back off on the sugar a little bit more later, but we'll see. I never use the semi-sweet chocolate chips. My husband says, and I agree, it's just way too sweet. You can use them if you want, but I prefer the bittersweet just to, again, back off on the sugar content a bit more. And I really love good quality dark chocolate. So this gets that little bit more of a darker chocolate. I usually consume 75% dark chocolate, but this is something closer. All right, so let's start putting this all together. Now we are first going to start with the flour, and here's where the conversion starts. If you've seen my other videos, I talk about the fact that when you are converting a recipe, generally speaking, for every 1 cup of all-purpose flour the recipe calls for, you need to increase the soft white wheat flour by about 1/2 cup. Again, always start with a little bit adding, but generally expect to add a little bit more than the recipe calls for. Now, Natasha's recipe calls for 3 cups of all-purpose flour. I'm going to measure out 3.5 cups of all-purpose flour. She also makes a big deal about not flattening down your flour. You want to be really gentle with it. What she actually states is instead of scooping it out with the measuring cup, you're going to spoon it into the measuring cup to get it light. I'm not going to do that because I'm going to be sifting the flour to get a little bit of that bran and germ out. Again, I am not making white flour here, y'all. I've had people ask me this before. I maybe get out 10% of the bran. Maybe, if even that. Sifting lightens the flour just because you're making it fluffier and it's not compact. And then it does get a little bit of that bran and germ out to make it a little bit lighter as well. You may be able to skip this step, but just to get a little bit lighter of the cookie, we're gonna sift it today, and also to ensure that that flour is light. So I'm going to measure out 3.5 cups of soft white wheat flour into my sifter and then sift it. And then whatever's after that, I'm gonna leave it. And I'll show you how much we've actually taken out of this. It's not gonna be that much. All right, so put it in my bowl. So let's measure 3.5 cups. So I kind of just shake it and make sure it's fairly even. So there's 1. Okay, and a half. Oh, okay, all right. So carefully, all right, we're gonna sift this out here. And I will speed it up for y'all to make sure you're not too bored. All right, and that's as much as we're gonna do it. Now, to just give you an idea of how much I've actually taken out, and some of this is actually just flour. I'm not sure if y'all can really see that, but you know it's getting close because it's super, super coarse, or just very coarse. So you see here, and some of this is just the actual flour, and that's maybe, here's a 1/4 cup, so let's measure it here. Oop, adding some back in. Yeah, guys, it's less than half. Oh, sorry. This is a half cup. I would say it's a little under a quarter of a cup. And again, that's mainly just the rough stuff in here. Okay, so we've got that sifted. She also says to sift your baking soda to make sure that there are no lumps in it. I should have added it with the flour. I forgot, but you can definitely add it with your flour, no problem. So we're just gonna sift it. I just have the salt in here too. Yeah, there are a few lumps, so we're getting that out. Okay, so we got all this. It's gonna kind of whisk it together. Now, one thing I forgot to do is actually we do need to cream our butter in with our egg. So I'm actually gonna dump this into a smaller bowl because I prefer to use this when I'm mixing. We are now gonna cream our butter in with our sugar. So this is 1 cup of butter, or 2 sticks of butter. We're gonna mix it with our brown sugar and with our cane sugar. All right, let's cream this together. So that's looking pretty good. Now we're gonna add in 1 egg at a time. So you've seen me before with fresh farm eggs, we crack 1 at a time. All right, so we got all of that nice and creamed. If you've made cookies or cakes before, ain't a big deal. Again, this is a pretty simple recipe to make, and you can do it with freshly milled grains. So for those of you who are a bit intimidated milling your own grains, this is a super easy recipe. You don't have to worry about bread rising. You just have to make sure that you tweak things a little bit and know how to bake them, which I'll tell you in a minute. And you'll have wonderful, delicious baked goods with freshly milled wheat. So let's add in our flour a little bit at a time. So basically roughly about, you know, 1/3 of it each time. Because again, we don't want flour going poof. All right, I'm just gonna scrape this down a little bit, and that is looking good. Oops, forgot my vanilla. So let's go ahead and add that now and then mix that in. Technically, it's usually added after you've creamed the butter and the sugars and added the eggs and then the vanilla, but you know, it's gonna mix in anyway, so we're just gonna give it a good mix again. So there we go. And it looks and feels like a good cookie dough. And now we're gonna add in our chocolate chips. We're just gonna fold these in. Now, one thing you can do is either have a little bit of extra or leave some of this out to actually add on top of the cookies before we bake them. So I'm actually gonna pull some out, not a whole lot, to be able to do that just a little bit. All right, let's dump them in. So there we go, just a good cookie batter recipe right here. Now, of course, we have to taste it, you know, quality control, you know. That is really good. We do not like to consume large amounts of sugar in this house, so we are not used to really, really sweet stuff anymore. So I have to say that this is a good sweetness. So if you're, again, not wanting something as sweet, especially because we did not use semi-sweet chocolate chip cookies, because we did not use semi-sweet chocolate chips, that backed off on the sugar as well. So this is actually quite good. I don't feel like I have cavities being added into my teeth immediately. So now, an important step, getting them onto the baking pan. All right, so here we are with our baking pan. Now mine is quite large, as you can see, but you know, use whatever regular baking pans that you have. I do love to use parchment paper, so I'm not having to really wash the dish. That is wonderful. Okay, so here's one thing that Natasha, I really loved and agree with her doing. And she said you want to use an ice cream scoop. Basically, this is equal to 3 tablespoons. So if you don't have an ice cream scoop, 3 tablespoons, but this gets you a really good shape, a really good amount to where it's gonna flatten out nicely in the good way, the way that you want it in the oven. Because if you do too much cookie dough, it's not gonna flatten out, so it's still gonna be mounded up. So you want just enough where it's going to, you know, go down into a cookie shape, but yet not completely flatten out, but yet not still remain a dome. Now, while we're doing this and baking all of this, we're preheating an oven to 350 degrees. So let's go ahead and get these on here. You do need to make sure that they are spaced apart. So here we go. There's one, and I know they're gonna look huge, but they're gonna be a really great size. And I just kind of push it up the side of the bowl to get it nice and even. And I am spacing these probably about 2 inches apart, just to be on the safe side. Not that you can't eat a cookie that has touched another one while baking, but if you plan on selling these or you want these to be really nice and pretty, you don't want them to touch while they are baking. So I've gotten 12 cookies on this one sheet. And again, this is a big one. And so now so I'm gonna have to do different batches because I don't have one this big. So now we're just gonna add some of these chocolate chips. Now, one thing I did not point out is these are a bit larger, if you can see, than your typical semi-sweet chocolate chips. So just know that if you get it, but I like them. And we're just gonna kind of gently stick them right in. I'm sticking about just 2 per cookie. I mean, you can't go wrong with adding more chocolate chips, in my opinion. Okay, and we've got that down. Whoops, be careful. We've got those done. Now let's put them in the oven. Now she says to cook them about 12 to 15 minutes. As I've said before, my oven usually runs a little bit hotter, so I'm gonna start it at 10 minutes and then check on it. You want to pull out cookies when they look like they are not done yet. That is the secret to getting nice, chewy, soft cookies. If they look like they are baked in the oven, they are overbaked. Trust me, they're gonna be really hard. And I mean, if you like that, great. But you know, the cookies need to be soft, especially chocolate chip cookies. So we're gonna put these in and we're going to check it in about 10 minutes. I'm looking for the bottom of the cookies to be a bit golden, but still looking undone at the top. So let's get these in. All right, here we go. I actually recorded it on the pan and then realized it actually wasn't recording. So we've already got it onto a cooling rack, still on the parchment paper. What I did is whenever I took it out of the oven, it did need just about 12 minutes in a 350-degree oven to cook until they were just golden on the bottom. And then I took it out of the oven, let it rest in the pan for about a minute or 2, and then I carefully shifted it to my cooling rack. You don't want to keep it on the pan because it will continue to bake, and you don't want that for crunchy cookies, unless you do want crunchy cookies. So we're gonna leave these. I'm gonna set my timer for about 5 to 10 minutes because we all know that you still want a hot cookie to eat, but it's still cooking a little bit. If I was to eat this now, it would break apart very easily, still be a bit doughy. So about 5 to 10 minutes, I get to beat off my husband and my children because my husband has already been in here eyeing this, wondering when he can have one. And I'll see you in about 5 to 10 minutes. All right, and now let's check these babies out. So as you can see, they are not super flat. They look delicious. And let's try one out. I know you're jealous of my mad camera skills, but they break apart so well, so nice and soft. And the chocolate is melted. And now let's try a bite. Perfect. All right, so that's it, y'all. I hope you really enjoy this wonderful chocolate chip cookies. It's practically guilt-free. It still has with the whole grain, so you get all the vitamins, the vitamin E, all the nutrients, the fiber, everything like that. You do have to watch the sugar content though, but it's still a wonderful way to get those whole grains in a delicious way as well. I have never had a kid or husband deny one. So be sure to comment below with the question of the day of what your favorite cookie it is. Also remember to check out the description box below for the printable recipe for this chocolate chip cookie recipe, and also for Natasha Kitchen's channel as well. Thank you so much for watching and have a wonderful day.